Not only was there a network of little record shops and big record shops, but there was also an ecosystem involved with all that and an accompanying culture. It wasn't just a place to go procure music. Obviously that was the main thrust of it, but in that came this community of different people, everybody, searching for their own thing, but relying on this network. My name is Alex Smith. I'm a native New Yorker. I've spent my entire life here in the city in Manhattan. I'm a writer, a blogger, and an avid music fan. Once I discovered the joys of downtown Manhattan's network of tiny independent record stores, my life completely changed. I'd grown up on the Upper East Side and I was going to places like Crazy Eddie's and Disco Mat and King Carol, and they were all fine to a degree, but they didn't have the more far-flung, esoteric, underground, weird stuff that I was looking for. And I had a crucial friend when I was in grade school named Walter, who lived down here on Cornelia Street. So in very short order, I was hitting places like Bleecker Bob's and Second Coming on Sullivan Street and St. Mark's Sounds on St. Mark's Place, and the whole new world opened up of options. My very favorite was probably a tiny little place on Prince Street called Rocks in Your Head, which was a basement level shop that really felt like you were walking into a shrine. It was almost like you were literally and figuratively going underground, but it was owned by this guy named Ira, and he was super reverent of the music he sold and the culture behind it and the stories, and you always heard something new and learned something new when you stepped into that place. And I invariably always stepped out with something new. When I was, an active participant in this community, I had the luxury of having all these places, not just to go and, get these records, but hang out, meet people, peruse, browse. It was as much about the experience of going out looking for stuff and stuff you'd encounter along the way as it was, acquiring the records. And a lot of those times, these places, like Tower Records is a perfect example, is this sprawling space on Broadway on 4th Street that just became a destination unto itself. Like whether you were looking to buy a record or not, you'd be like, let's go hang at Tower, and it was brilliant. I now, as a 56-year-old father of 2, I have an 18-year-old son who's a complete music fan as well, and he's into the music and the culture, and and we live now in the very Greenwich Village that all these shops used to exist in. When he goes out with his friends, he doesn't have a Tower Records to hang out. They go to Starbucks or they go to Wegmans. Like the other night, they went to Wegmans, and I was like, Wegmans is a grocery store. What were you doing? He's like, well, where else are we gonna go? I'm like, that's a tragedy. It's a ridiculous point, but it is, there used to be more interesting places to hang out in New York City when you're a young, aspiring music fan, and there just isn't now.
My name is Lucas. This is For the Record, and we're a coffee shop and a record store in Greenpoint. When I first opened, I had really little experience in vinyl, none, honestly. And working in music at all, actually, no experience, no connections, nothing. I originally thought that it'd be more about the coffee. However, what I've been most surprised about has been how much I've loved working in music. And I already had plenty of event experience, so I was kind of already looking for bigger places where I could bring a lot of that experience to play. And so many DIY places in the city overall, but in Brooklyn in particular, were shuttered due to COVID. So there was a real need that I kind of fell into for DIY shows, where we kind of filled that niche kind of early on. I met some comedians who started hosting a monthly comedy show here, and that really helped add some stability to the programming. And then we started doing concerts, and we started hosting pop-ups and private events here, so the event side and the space really exploded. This past weekend was our first ever Record Fair Palooza. We had 7 vendors Saturday, 8 vendors on Sunday, and these are people that all do kind of music in their spare time. We had one of our sellers is trying to bring a product to market. It's a record storage unit, and I'm trying to give him more of a space to advertise his product in the shop because I think it's really unique. We had a seller selling flower pressed picks, and we had cassettes here, and we had a guy with his own music label selling music from artists that he's worked with. So it was a whole wide range of people in the industry, so to speak, selling their records and merch as well.
I saw my friend in a pool of light, all drowned in doubt and shame, and I knew that I had lost my sight.
My name is Luca Williams. I am the owner and manager of Moonshot Emporium, which is a vinyl, vintage clothing, and antique odds and ends shop in Seacliff, New York. The store opened in November of 2021. I was 17. I had been collecting records for a while, and for probably like 6 months to a year before then, I had been selling at record shows and flea markets, and then had the opportunity to use this space as a pop-up shop. And it was a success. The town is also very music-oriented. There's a lot of musicians and bands, a lot of big Grateful Dead culture. So yeah, it made sense. The town fit the script. Above being a seller, I'm definitely a buyer. That's what I love to do. That's like my biggest hobby. Besides probably playing music, that's just, nothing beats being at, my favorite record stores. The first record I bought in a store was The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkeys. And some singles I got with that too, like Hey Jude. When I was there, when I was digging through like hundreds of records and I found this record, and that I was sold.
Through the prism of 2024, if you're trying to find a song, within minutes you can find it. It doesn't require a lot of work. Whereas, I heard a snippet of a song and I was like, what's that? And it would take me weeks to track it down, and I'd be going to each one of these little shops, and I may have known a bass line or a fragment of the lyric, and I would have to sort of, act it out. Or I don't know how I managed to do it, but I would somehow trace it to where I could find it and claim it as my own. And there was a little work. It was like the search was kind of half the fun in a weird way. And then when you did find it, it was this incredible, holy grail moment once again. And I think it invested a lot more meaning to your appreciation of the piece, as opposed to just one more thing you throw in the pile. Or, now if you hear a song, you give it a 30-second spin on whatever streaming device and you decide if you like it or not, whatever. When it took so much work to find the record you were looking for, when you did find it, you wanted to invest in it.
I think that for our generation, my generation, I think the record store atmosphere is definitely still there. I think it's obviously different than it would have been back in the day when people would meet up at the record store, because I think that most people discover new music online. So when you go to the record store, I think you're really looking to get something. I know that in my mind, I have a list of like hundreds of records that I'm looking to get. And I think this was more what people were doing in like the late 90s to 2000s, was really older, generally men, looking to get back the records that they sold. A lot of people who are buying records today are trying to get back what they lost. That's how people are thinking about it, which is really sad. I think more people are getting into it, but at the same time, everything they want is just informed by streaming. So they're not gonna go, they don't wanna go and look through, they don't have the patience to see everything. Where I'm a record store, I really like to look through everything. I don't think that those people will keep record stores going. A, they don't really spend enough money, and what they're getting mostly, they're getting it from Newberry or Amazon. You know, a record at Newberry Comics for $40. For the price of one Phoebe Bridgers album, which I love Punisher, great album, you're looking at like 6, you know, like Elton John, Eric Clapton, Joe Walsh, Linda Ronstadt. And even the new buyers, you know, they want Dark Side of the Moon, they don't want Adam Hart Mother, or they don't want to explore the band's entire catalog and really take it all in. They just want these specific things that they've heard on Spotify, and they just want it. Why do you even want that? If you just want the one album, just listen to it on Spotify, save the money. But I understand it's like an intimate thing, the smell of the record, the touch, the liner notes, it's great.
Like I said earlier, I had never collected vinyl before. Growing up, my parents had CDs at home, but essentially I had never really listened to albums like the way they're released, right? I had never collected physical media, I never collected physical music until I opened up the shop. And it had always been in the back of my head for 2 reasons. One, during COVID, during lockdown, it became much more conscious what we were listening to at home, even just on the speaker, on the Alexa, whatever, because we were stuck inside and there wasn't really much else going on. So we really wanted to be actively listening to things that brought us a lot of happiness at home, not just something to put on in the background and not just playing like top hits. The second reason is because coming from hospitality industry, music is always a second thought, and it's usually really, really bad. A lot of bigger restaurants have to use corporate playlists that have been like specially licensed to be played. Then at the time when I was opening up, I had these 2 thoughts in my head about like the importance and significance of music, and I really wanted to connect with that kind of side. And as I started listening to records and I started playing records in the shop, I became so engrossed in listening to albums all the way through. And it completely changed my whole like way I consume music. And I don't even get bogged down in like quality on streaming versus vinyl. It never even occurred to me, honestly. The real important part is like actually supporting the artist, especially the smaller ones that sell on Bandcamp or at their shows. I bought so many vinyl records from bands selling at their shows in between sets, and it's always so fun. You get to meet the band and you miss out on all of this from streaming. And artists have made the album and produced it in a way that it's meant to be from A to B. I mean, TikTok has kind of ruined this for a lot of people, funny enough, but it's kind of like if you watch a movie and you watch it randomly out of order and in segments. But a movie is meant to be watched from the beginning to the end, and albums are kind of the exact same way. And I didn't really realize that until I started playing it here, and I really came to love the time it takes to flip over from the A side to the B side, the little surface noise, the scratches. I really came to enjoy all of that very, very much, and I thought it added like a real kind of beauty to it.
One of the benefits of today, if you're a music fan, is there's been a wide, for lack of a better term, sort of a democratizing of access to music. With only a few keystrokes, you can hear music from pretty much all over the world, all possible genres. Not everything's online, but a lot of stuff is. So you can mix and match and sample this and that. I think in the grand scheme of things, it can only be healthier to be embracing of all possible genres. Kids today listen to music in a totally different way than I did, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If a new, fresh, young audience is hearing a song from 25, 30 years ago because it's been utilized in a TikTok meme or whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if a 17-year-old hears Oh Superman by Laurie Anderson for the first time because somebody put it in their weird little video, and they go out and discover that brilliant record, everyone wins. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter. You can be all gatekeepy and say, oh, you're not hearing it in its proper context. But the fact that that music is reaching new ears can only be a good thing for everybody.
The best part about collecting records is finding a new record. Even if it's just like once a month, there's so much music that people do not listen to that a lot of people had in the record collections that most people wouldn't have even heard of just because maybe they didn't have hits, but they sold a lot of albums, or their music hasn't been used in any movies. I think that's the stuff that really keeps songs going, is movies, obviously what happened with Kate Bush and the TikTok trend, So I think, yeah, what they stand to gain should be looking through the dollar bin and taking 10 records that they've never heard of, or they just know the name of the band, they don't know any of the songs, sitting down, listening to it. It doesn't have to be in great shape. Try it out. If you like that, get one in good condition or keep it. If you just like cheap records, I think that's great too. On record, listen to something you wouldn't listen to on your phone. You could live two different lifestyles. I think that's good.
The sort of a sense of connection with the music through ownership of these items wasn't something that anybody set out to attain back, in the 80s and 90s. If I bought a record because I was curious to hear it, or I'd heard the song and really liked it, I wanted to experience it again, so I bought the record. I don't know if every record I'm going to pick up is going to enrich my life in the same way some of those did. It just doesn't work that way. That's not why you're doing it. It just sort of happens organically. Now, in 2024, when people listen to music via whatever streaming service, that music can still be just as life-affirming to them as if they owned it. I don't know why the ownership aspect makes such a difference.
To me, it means it's a great thing to do. It's a lot of fun. I could say something wholesome about the community and some, buyers, some friends of the store I've come close with. But I'm looking to grow my collection. I'm very passionate about collecting. I take it very seriously and just enjoy them by myself. I just like to look at the spines and see everything I have. I'm like, oh, I have a story for everyone.
I still buy discs. I still buy vinyl, not just because it's like a, affectation. I mean, I enjoy owning the tactile artifact. I like the liner notes. I like the cover. I like the investment. I like the fact that by buying this, I'm hoping the artist sees a little revenue. And it's for something that I've spent so much time and energy and money and that has come to sort of enrich my life. I take music very seriously in that respect. I'm trying not to be the old guy that's, like, in my day, we bought records. Yeah, we did, but things change. I miss the culture that went with it, that, for lack of a better term, so defined my life and continues to define it. Like, look, I brought a bunch of my records from home, like this ephemera that I drag around all the time that takes up all this space in my, I've got friends who got rid of all their vinyl, all their CDs, all their cassettes. I still have closetfuls of cassettes. I'm so tethered to this stuff. So the idea of throwing any of it away would be like ripping up a photograph to me. I can tell you where I bought it. I can tell you who I was with, who I was dating, where I was going to school at the time, what job I had, where I was living, and what it meant to me, and how all those factors were intertwined. It's not just something I'm listening to for entertainment. It's something that enriched my life, that informed my existence. I'm not about to throw it out just because I have it as an MP3 or as a digital sound file. They'll be buried with me. You can be buried with your fucking phone. I'm taking my records with me. Sorry.
And then for other bands I take more seriously, like Beatles, The Who, The Stones, the Ramones, Bowie. You want all the bootlegs. You want all of the reissues, so every time that they pressed it, you want one of those presses.
I had a little CD case where I had all my favorite ones in there. I was listening to a lot of White Stripes and a lot of Green Day and Squirrel Nut Zippers, shout out Squirrel Nut Zippers.
This is the Peace Man single by a band called Cop Shoot Cop, who are one of my favorites. You'll notice it looks a little tainted. That's because the original run of singles, of which there are only a couple of thousand, I believe, were splattered in real pig's blood, which means I had to have two of them.